What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today you guys have asked us to react to this video. It is called What Mexico is Doing to the US Border Shocks the World. Now this is going to be interesting. I know, the US and Mexico are neighbors, so I'll be curious to see what's so shocking about this.
But before we get into it, please smash that subscribe button if you haven't already. We are en route to 100K now.
Let's make it happen, guys, and let's watch this.
The southern border of the U.S. with Mexico stretches for 1,930 miles, running from the Pacific Ocean to the southern tip of Texas. And about 696 of these miles are protected by a wall. This isn't just some fence, it's a massive steel barrier towering over 29 feet high with gaps of only 4 inches between the steel posts. Squeezing through is out of the question. The square wall posts have a diameter of 6 inches with something each. The contractors even had to fill the lower sections with concrete, and in some cases with steel reinforcement to make cutting through the wall harder. As a bonus, the steel structure is coated with black paint. Donald Trump, the creator of the wall, insisted that this would make the barrier hotter to the touch and burn the hands of potential illegal migrants.
What's your thoughts on the wall? Without getting too political, guys, we don't want to turn this into like a political warfare in the comment section, but your general thoughts of the wall?
I don't know, I feel kind of like a prisoner in my opinion.
What, not being able to go to the US
Yeah, I
border?
mean, I get like there needs to be something in place for people not to freely roam over the border, but I don't know, personally, I feel like a prisoner, but then again, I guess it is needed to stop people from crossing the border.
It also, I get what you're saying, but it's also to keep, Mexicans who are in Mexico, within Mexico, and Americans not crossing the other way either. So it's just to keep that separation. With the UK, it's a bit different. We're on an island, so we don't have this issue. But I do think something is necessary. And if that's the most effective way, then that's the most effective way. It is what it is.
Do North and South Korea? I don't think North and South Korea have a
You
physical
can cross,
border,
because I think I saw a video of Trump crossing, and he was like the first American president. You remember?
Yeah.
And it was a big deal. So.
On top of that, double fences were installed in high traffic areas like San Diego. U.S. Border Patrol agents have all kinds of high-tech surveillance gear to help them out. Everything from motion sensor cameras to drones and tethered aerostats that hover high above the border, giving them a 24/7, 360-degree view. And even in the ground around this area, sensors are buried that trigger an alarm if someone or something big enough passes nearby. To make sneaking across the border nearly impossible, many sections are brightly lit at night. And we're not just talking about streetlights. Over the past few years, federal contractors have installed around 2,000 stadium-style floodlights in southern Arizona alone. Can you imagine how powerful those are? This wall looked impossible to get past, but in 2019 that turned out not to be the case when newspapers started talking about smugglers who'd learned to slip through it, and not just through it. So today's going to be fun. And for now, I'm off to make some coffee.
And this is why something needs to be in place. Because, God forbid, you don't know who's crossing the border. You might have some convicted ex-killer coming into the States, and that person might end up killing a family member of yours.
Vice versa as
and
well.
Vice versa.
Yeah.
It could happen in either way. So there has to be something. They can't just leave that open.
Just a super unobtrusive reminder to hit the like button in case you forget by the time you're done watching. To start with, the whole wall thing began way before Trump's first presidency, back in the 1990s. That's when the first miles of fencing went up along the Mexican border. By the way, Bill Clinton was president at the time. After that, over the last 30 years, the wall kept growing bit by bit. The fencing expanded until it reached its current size. For example, between 2008 and 2016, a wall was built on the California-Mexico border. Then, between 2017 and 2021, another 458 miles of wall were added between the U.S. and Mexico.
It's a big wall.
But its purpose has always been the same: to reduce illegal immigration to the U.S. from Mexico. At the same time, just so you know, the barrier isn't a solid structure, but a series of obstacles that are classified in different ways as fences or walls. Between the physical barriers, security is provided by a virtual fence made up of sensors, cameras, and other surveillance equipment I already mentioned. As for the final stages of building barriers, President Donald Trump built those 458 miles of new fencing, mostly in remote areas of New Mexico and Arizona. He planned to build around 248 more miles, but lost the election and the construction was stopped. Instead, the Biden administration called on Congress to fund not the building of fences, but alternative ways to improve border security.
So Biden's administration said, we don't want to continue the fence building. Now I can't, you know what? I'm not going to say nothing on that because if I do, there's no way to stay out of politics by commenting on that. But you guys comment below your thoughts on that.
Yeah, you let us know what you think.
But now Trump's back in power, and during his second term, he's planning to finish the project he's so proud of.
We need the wall. We've started building the wall.
We're going to have the wall. We've already started building it.
We started building our wall. I'm so proud of it.
And it's no surprise, since the wall on the border with Mexico was the central theme of Trump's 2016 campaign, and he made that wall a physical symbol of his presidency. Yeah, he originally wanted to build a literal concrete wall, but the Department of Homeland Security staff talked him out of it. They didn't want to lose the ability to easily see the other side. However, it soon became clear that no barriers or new technologies were able to save the situation. According to unpublished reports from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection from 2019 to 2022, Mexican smuggling gangs cut new sections of the border wall 3,272 times and crossed the border. How does it happen? Actually, it's easier than you think, because smuggling gangs usually cut through the fence with cheap power tools that are easy to buy in regular hardware stores, like angle grinders and demolition saws. And to cut through a post, it'll take 20 minutes or less if the team works in pairs with 2 saws. After the posts, ranging from 16 to 29 feet tall, are cut off at the ground, the only remaining point of attachment is the top of the structure. This means the steel beam is just hanging in the air, turning into something like a big cat door. It easily swings open with a push, creating a gap wide enough for people to pass through and carry anything they want. People familiar with smuggler tactics say they usually work at night, covering themselves with blankets to hide the sparks and muffle the noise. They also use lookouts to warn the cutting teams when Border Patrol cars are approaching. And most importantly, it's enough to make one little door, after which the smugglers can keep coming back to the spot over and over again until the damage is...
It makes you think, the people who talked Trump out of doing the concrete one probably regret that now, because if he'd done concrete, they wouldn't have this issue. Because they just spent so much money investing in the wall, and this is not cheap. And then the fact that they can just cut through one of the pillar things like that is crazy.
But I think he wanted concrete afterwards, no?
No, he wanted this to be concrete, and he got
talked. The whole thing.
Yeah, he got talked out of it because they said they don't want to lose visibility to know what's happening on the other side. But Trump, so I guess they kind of, and then he maybe agreed, said, you know what, that's not a bad idea. But then this wasn't good enough. So now look, they got this problem now.
Discovered and sealed up. Then the smugglers just make another one. The most active are such cutting crews in California. The El Centro Border Patrol sector reported the highest number of violations, 1,867, followed by the San Diego sector with 866 violations. In March 2021, smugglers even broke through an entire section of the fence made of posts in the El Centro sector, creating a wide enough gap for 2 SUVs to drive through. Sure.
How much drugs did they take in there? Or how many people did they want to smuggle in there?
But if there's 24/7 surveillance...
Yeah, but the wall's massive. It's
not, so long as well.
It's not like it's peak. That wall is... Like, guys, comment below, because I know some of you will know. How long do you reckon it will take to walk, not drive, walk one side of the wall to the other side? Because then that will put into perspective to us how big this wall actually is.
I think days.
I think it's something like that.
Let's go from one state to a whole another state.
Yeah, I think it'll be days. Comment below, guys.
Months, maybe, if you're
someone
walking.
use Google Maps or something.
Yeah.
They're trying to fix these gaps in the fences, but let's just say it doesn't really help to solve the problem. For example, the government spent $2.6 million closing holes during the 2019, 2020, and 2021 financial years. In most cases, repair crews used a steel coupler as a patch to cover the holes. Some patches have the word breach written on them, while most just have the repair date scratched above the welded seams. Along the 25-mile stretch of the new border wall, 71 spots with visible signs of repairs and welds were found. But you know what? There's no guarantee that all the gaps on this segment were patched up, because after smugglers break through, they often cover up their tracks with tinted putty, making it hard for agents to figure out which part of the fence was actually broken. But let's be honest, one of the biggest advantages of a steel post system is that damaged parts can be easily repaired or replaced. Doing the same with a solid concrete wall would be way harder.
True.
Right now, if agents spot any damage, welding crews are sent out right away to fix it, but the smugglers aren't backing down either. They come back to the same poles and cut through the welded seams again, since the metal there is softer and the concrete at the base is already damaged. And so it turns into a never-ending cycle. According to officials, Mexican criminal groups making billions from smuggling are highly motivated to adapt to new border obstacles, and they do whatever it takes to cross that border. But then again, fences aren't just cut through. American agents and ranchers living along the border say that climbing over the wall rather than cutting it is the more common way. Both smugglers...
You know what they need to do? They need to hire Michael Scofield from Prison Break and say, how do we stop this issue? Because these are doing some Prison Break shit right now. They are getting out over the wall, under the wall, through the wall. They need to get someone top dog to figure out this shit properly and have a one-time solution that can't be defeated.
Smugglers and migrants trying to cross the border illegally use this method. They build tall ladders out of wood scraps or metal rebar, just slim enough to fit between the posts.
I know what you jump.
Ladders used to climb up the structure, then slip through the gaps. Remember, it's 4 inches wide. And then it's used again to climb down the wall on the American side. Ropes with knots are also often used to climb down, and videos on social media show that the most athletic climbers have learned to grip poles between their legs and slide down like pro firefighters. At the same time, rebar ladders are popular because metal support rods are cheap. Rebar, which is easy to find in hardware stores, is usually used in concrete for reinforcement, so it's as accessible as it gets. So yeah, ladders are actively used, despite the risk of injury or even death from falling. The tallest fences are about as high as a 3-story building. But who cares? Besides, this way there's no need to cut through anything. Some smugglers even use lightweight rebar ladders to get past the so-called anti-climb panels. They're placed at the top of the fence and, well, they don't seem to be working. As soon as the lead climber reaches the top, they hook up rope ladders and let them down. But what blew my mind the most was that people don't just climb over the barrier or force their way through it. They also dig tunnels underground. Between 2017 and 2019, Border and Customs officials found 40 tunnels. 40! The stats show an interesting spike in tunnel discoveries in 2020, about 1 new tunnel per month. One of those 2020 tunnels was called the longest ever discovered. And in 2022, a tunnel was found in one of the most heavily fortified sections of the border. And no, this isn't just about some run-of-the-mill digging under fences. There's protection against that. Metal beams are embedded in a concrete base that goes deep underground. What we've got here is something way bigger and way more serious. To get a sense of how it all works, let's take a look at 2 tunnels I just mentioned. The longest one and the one in the most fortified spot. In 2020, U.S. authorities announced that they had discovered the longest smuggling tunnel ever found on the southwestern border of the country. It stretched as far as 0.8 miles from an industrial site in Tijuana, Mexico to the San Diego area.
How long they been digging this tunnel for? 0.8 miles they're digging. Just chilling under the U.S. soil. That's crazy.
Area in California. This tunnel had a huge system of rail carts, ventilation, high voltage electric cables. There was even an elevator at the tunnel entrance and a drainage system. All in all, with just a little more work, they could have had a subway there. Although the tunnel was only about 5.5 feet high and 24 inches wide, which is pretty small for a subway, but they did lay it at a medium depth of 69 feet below the surface, and the unfinished branch of the tunnel, 0.6 miles long, made the authorities think that the smugglers walled off the original exit and are building a new one. The next longest tunnel in the U.S. was discovered in San Diego in 2014. It measured 2,966 feet, which is also pretty impressive. Overall, since 2006, authorities have uncovered 15 complex tunnels on the California-Mexico border, and all of them had lighting, ventilation, railroad tracks, and hydraulic lifts. This gives you an idea of how much criminal groups are willing to invest in smuggling when they're...
Thing is, they're making, like they said, like each criminal group can make millions of this stuff, the drug smuggling. So they will pay a construction team like good money, way more than the construction people are earning on their little jobs in Mexico, because the Mexico pay is not going to be like US. These are making mills doing this. So they're going to offer big money to people who know what they're doing, who are professionals. These ain't just random drug dealers digging with a spade. This is top professionals who are doing this, who are building Mexico for a living, getting paid crazy cartel money to do this job.
I'm not gonna lie, when we saw the tunnels, that looked like some serious
Proper construction.
You know what you're doing for you to build a tunnel like that.
You got electricity running through there, tracks, everything.
You had a bloody elevator over there as well.
This is why Trump is very eager to build this wall.
I understand.
Paying for underground projects like this. Tunnels are usually concentrated in Otay Mesa, a neighborhood in the San Diego enclave where the clay soil makes digging easier and the warehouses serve as hiding spots. And if you're wondering what happens to the tunnels after they're discovered, there's a law for that. According to it, U.S. authorities are required to fill the American side of the tunnels with concrete once they're found. The Mexican side, of course, is the responsibility of the Mexican authorities.
Fair.
As for the tunnel in the most fortified area, it led to a warehouse in the industrial zone on U.S. territory.
Look how much concrete that will take to fill that. Imagine trying to fill that with concrete. They're going to leave it draining for ages.
About 2,624 feet from the border crossing. Agents set up surveillance on a house that had recently been used as a stash for smuggling, conducted a search of the premises, and found a tunnel carved into the cement floor. The tunnel stretched 1,640 feet all the way to Tijuana, had a diameter of 4 feet, and ran 6 stories underground. And yes, it was built at the most fortified section of the border.
Which is even
the smugglers not only stubbornly dig these tunnels, they also hide the entrances in the most unexpected ways. Agents say they've seen it all, from pool tables to electric panels, hydraulic baths, and elevators. There was even an exit point in the U.S. where every time someone came out through the tunnel, they would pour concrete into the hole, paint it, and lay the carpet.
I'm not going to lie, this is giving me Prison Break vibes. I'm watching it again for like the 5th time, yeah? I swear that, when they're in the first prison and they're like working in that thing, and then whenever Officer Bellick comes, they quickly cover it. Same thing.
Yeah.
Literally
Again,
same thing.
the attention to detail is so
Wild.
intense that it almost seems unreal. But what's the outcome? While walls are considered effective against small, roughly built tunnels, they're totally useless when it comes to complex, deep passages built by smugglers. These tunnels allow them to smuggle large goods across the border illegally. It's much easier and cheaper than delivering these goods over the surface, forcing couriers to climb mountains and dodge border patrols. And since they make a lot of money from smuggling, they can invest serious amounts to carry it out.
That's the issue.
However, some opportunities for illegal border crossings appeared right during the wall's construction. The landscape made its construction more complicated and slowed it down. In some places, they literally had to blast mountains to put up a fence. And as you remember, the construction was never finished. The government changed, so the wall was left incomplete. The builders left, leaving behind a scarred landscape and a dump of steel fence panels stacked by the hundreds. Here's how it looks: a prepared site and no fencing. You can even track how the wall suddenly ends in places where construction stopped. And of course, these gaps in the wall have become active crossing points for migrants and smugglers, because even if some places the gaps in the wall are only about 3 feet wide, in other places they're much wider. Plus, in some spots, locals simply didn't allow the wall to be built. For example, along the Rio Grande in Texas, almost all the land is privately owned, which caused some complications. In the rush to build the wall as quickly as possible before Biden took office, construction crews in several areas of southern Arizona missed spots that needed extra engineering work.
I wonder what happens with the private land, because if it's private land, that person could say, no, I don't want your wall to cross my land, which he said caused complication. Did Trump's administration try to pay those people off and say, look, we'll give you X money to allow us? Because that is a big thing. That's a big complication. You can't own private land and just have a fence running through it without you authorizing that you're happy for that. Comment below, guys, if you know what they've done to try, get these people who own the private land to win them over to allow their build.
The thing is, can you tell a president, no, I do not want your fence going on my
Apparently
private land?
added complication. Maybe you can't say no. I don't know. Comment below, guys. You guys will know better. So we'll be reading them.
This included streams that required gates and areas on the border markers that had to provide agents with access to the southern or Mexican side of the barrier in case of an emergency. The teams working from the opposite directions needed non-standard size segments to fill the gap, and the panels didn't arrive on time. As a result, On one of the spans of the fence to the east of Sasabe, Arizona, there are a couple dozen gaps in the wall, and in other parts of the structure, deformed temporary panels are welded on like patches. And of course, none of this really makes the wall any less penetrable. But there's another part of the border where they didn't build a fence. That's because a river runs through this area.
So
the
it's
length
like a
of the
swim
national
through.
border with Mexico is 1,954 miles, of which 1,255 miles run along the Rio Grande River and another 699 miles are land-based. You can't exactly build a wall on a river, but the river itself is fast and deep, and it's full of rocks and thick vegetation, making it hard to cross. As an additional measure, barbed wire's been put up at the border, but it doesn't really help much. Despite the difficulties, people still cross the river on foot and then climb over the wire, ending up in the United States. To try to prevent this, Texas began installing a floating sea barrier on the Rio Grande River in 2023. It was planned that it would look something like giant buoys that would form a sort of fence about 984 feet long. Texas argued that the barrier was also meant to save lives and force migrants to cross the border at entry points. However, later, a federal district judge ruled to remove the barrier.
No way. Why?
And here, perhaps, it's time to ask the most important question. Does this mean the wall on the border with Mexico is a pointless waste of money? Not quite. Despite the gaps, the barrier remains a valuable security tool when combined with surveillance technology and enough personnel. Many sections of the wall where breaches occurred don't have the sensors, cameras, and other detection systems originally planned, so the idea was solid and workable, it just wasn't fully carried out. But once these systems are in place, and if they are, agents will be able to respond faster. From the very beginning, it was clear that no structure, regardless of its design, could close the border on its own. That's why a whole system was developed.
Drones.
Physical barriers, surveillance technology, and the quick deployment of agents to stop violators. And the system has to work together. That is, all the components at once. As soon as any element stops working, the border becomes vulnerable. Other agents point out that in the past, smugglers with reciprocating saws could cut through previous versions of the fence much faster than they can with the new ones now. The narrow gap created by the cut post only allows one person to pass at a time, making it harder for large groups to cross the border. Some people think this is a wasteful project, which cost $15 billion and still needs millions of dollars a year to maintain, not to mention finishing it properly. But Trump's second term has just begun. Let's see what happens with the wall in the future.
If you were president of the United States and you were pro-wall, what would your solution be to like try and get on top of this? Do you have anything in mind that you think, you know what, I could implement this to help stop the smuggling and the people coming in?
Well, if it was me, I would up the security of the wall. I would increase the surveillance of the wall. I would actually look into maybe adding an additional material or something on the wall to stop, the smugglers from cutting it. But then again, they're digging tunnels.
But it's good. No, it's good what you said.
Yeah.
My one's a bit more raw.
OTT?
Yeah, but I think I honestly...
What, shoot them on sight?
I was going to say, this is really bad to say, guys, but I'll get a sniper team.
No, that's a bit much.
And like, you get a wall, like if I'm not saying, oh yeah, they're touching the wall, you get shot, nothing like that. But you allow them to try, if you see them with a sniper and you do a warning shot. So they, you shoot kind of not near them, but like a warning shot that they could see to say, and maybe like some sort of announcement to say, stop tampering with the wall, we have warned you. That warning shot will be enough to get people away, surely. I'm not saying just shoot anyone that touches the wall, no. That's very extreme. But some sort of warning shot, because I feel like that will implement the fear that they're not going to continue. If someone shot near my feet and I'm trying to get through this wall, I'm like, oh shit. Like straight away, I'll have that fear. What do you guys think? What would you guys do? I don't know, man. It's a very difficult one. I feel like an extreme measure has to come in place. Otherwise, it's never going to end. That's my opinion.
But then you have to put the funding into this extreme measure as well.
It'll be so expensive.
Yeah.
Most important news in the last few days is that I tripped but didn't fall. Delivery drones.
Great. Drones.
Late
will
at
be a
night
good
on
one.
April 24th,
With CCTV,
2015,
like
a
you said.
19-year-old guy was standing in a farmer's field a few hundred feet north of the border with Mexico. When a drone launched from Mexico flew out of the darkness, the guy used a remote control to give it the command to drop a package wrapped in bubble wrap. This happened 4 times, and the whole process took a few hours, after which the guy drove off with a friend. However, he didn't know that U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents had captured all of this on camera. I think you already guessed what the drone was bringing from Mexico to the U.S.
Cocaine.
During a car search, agents found 28 pounds of illegal substances worth nearly $1.5 million. And even though that guy and his friend ended up in jail, the drone and its user from Mexico managed to escape. So is this some kind of new perfect way to smuggle everything banned in the U.S.? Looks like it. But it's not some kind of tech miracle. A typical delivery drone is small and affordable, like the quadcopters that cost a few $100s. But some devices are actually 6 and 8 motor aircraft and can cost over $5,000 and carry up to 35 pounds. Anyway, nobody really knows how many drones cross the border every day or how to stop them. But how come smugglers figured this out? Well, the main goal is to remain uncaught. Before drones, smugglers used boats to transport their goods, which could carry a lot more payload, but were easy to track with radar. Time passed, technology advanced, and in 2013, the Chinese company DJI released its first consumer drone, and the smugglers realized this was a new way to get away with it. Since DJI drones were cheap and easy to fly, soon after they appeared, reports started popping up about their use for carrying mobile phones and banned substances over prison fences. However, at the time, border authorities weren't too worried about this. The drones were too small to carry anything significant. And then this happened. In January 2015, a commercial drone loaded with illegal goods fell from the night sky in Tijuana, Mexico. It was a DJI Spreading Wings S900 hexacopter intended for professional photo and video shooting. It crashed in a grocery store parking lot, and everything that fell out of it was estimated by the Mexican police to be worth $43,000. Some experts suggest that up to 1,000 drones could cross the border every week, but not everyone agrees with that. In any case, we'll never know the exact number as the Border Service doesn't disclose that kind of information. But wait, why count drones instead of just preventing them from entering U.S. territory? Well, it's not that simple. One way to stop a drone is by electronically attacking its radar communication, which operates on Wi-Fi frequency ranges. However, current federal laws forbid jamming signals because of its impact on civilian communications. For the same reason, jamming and spoofing GPS signals aren't considered. Attacking the system in an urban environment would make it harder for rescuers, delivery trucks, and construction teams to operate. It seems like there's no way out.
Right?
Yeah, so it just adds a layer of difficult. Can't they just do it temporarily, quickly, get the drone out, and then...
I guess it's harder than we
Easier
think.
said than done, isn't it? It must be.
The only option left is to catch these drones.
Sniper team.
8 wall prototypes. But let's get back to our wall. It turns out that the preparation for its construction was pretty serious. By 2017, they'd created as many as 8 prototypes of the wall towering over the California desert, from which the best one had to be chosen. The prototypes of the border wall were made exactly according to the special request, 4 made of concrete and 4 others from non-concrete materials, through which you can see all the way through. Then they were left to bake in the sun for 30 days. This was needed for the concrete to dry. What happened next? Well, then the Border Service staff had to conduct comprehensive penetrability tests on the finished prototypes, each of which has a height ranging from 16 to 29 feet. Additionally, customs officers had to check whether it was possible to dig under such walls, cut through them, and so on.
Because now they know, innit? They're trying to make sure the new ones are...
Climbers for a test. I almost forgot to mention that it should be impossible to climb over the wall. This is literally the main goal of the construction, which was set by Donald Trump. He said this back in 2019, and to test the new section of the barrier at that time, the president even wanted to hire climbers. Trump boasted that the rock climbing test proves that it's impossible to climb the wall. However, the climbers themselves had no idea what the U.S. president was talking about. Some were even outraged. For instance, a second-year Stanford University student who ranks 5th among the country's women climbers said it was ridiculous. Another athlete mentioned that he had never heard of climbers being selected for an attempt to scale the border wall. Another female boulderer said that no well-known U.S. climber had ever been involved in anything like that. Some people pointed out that Trump might have confused rock climbers who mainly rely on their hands and feet with mountain climbers who use technical gear to move through the mountains. Anyway, you get the idea. A pretty weird thing to do. But apparently not for everyone. Some particularly outraged climbers tried the 29-foot replica of the wall being built on the U.S.-Mexico border in the Red River Gorge.
Cool.
The fastest time it took to climb the wall was 17.29 seconds. In another attempt, the same climber scaled the wall while juggling with one hand, although he didn't make it to the top. In short, the wall was considered moderately difficult at that time.
And they're using equipment. So it's a good thing he done that. Because if people with equipment can't get over it, how the hell is someone...
Average Joe with nothing.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Don't get me wrong, these Mexicans are going to train and try it.
Yeah.
But, like, do you know what I mean? If they can't, no human can. Like, unless you're flying.
But definitely not impossible. And for some reason, this made people panic. Many social media commentators took the experiment seriously, questioning the methods of both the builders and the climbers. The news of the wall replica quickly went viral, and Time magazine even published an article about an 8-year-old girl who managed to climb the wall built by the climbers. Did Trump say anything about this experiment of the climbers?
He's not going to.
I couldn't find any info on it. You owe me a like.
Damn. So, like, after watching that video, what's your thoughts on, like, the wall now? Like, you know, before you said it feels like you're in kind of prison and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, do you still have that mindset?
I am for the wall now because, like we explained, you don't know who is coming through. We saw a lot of smugglers, bringing drugs through. We don't know the history of anyone. I think there's a wall between Canada and America as well.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know. Comment below. Is there a wall between Canada and US? I don't think there is.
Maybe not.
I think they got border patrol, but it's not like a wall like that.
Maybe not.
Because I think the Mexicans, obviously not all Mexicans, but the drug cartel ones, they're abusing that shit and they're bringing illegal activities over.
Yeah.
And they're kind of making money off the US citizens through giving them drugs and cocaine and stuff, you know. So I'm very for the wall, especially I was already for the wall, but after seeing that, I'm like, this wall needs to. I'm even saying introduce a sniper team. I'll be real.
You're gonna email the presidency sector,
the administration.
Like, yo, I got an idea for you guys.
I'm from the UK, but I do believe you guys need sniper team on this. Guys, comment below what your thoughts are. Or if you were president, what would your solution be? That'll be interesting to read. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. For now, peace out.
Bye.